Axons Unleashed.
As ADF members and veterans, we see the world differently. In a world that tolerates and accepts subpar performance, understandably, we demand more. With over 100 years of military service across all three services inside the wire at Axon, this podcast will give you access to Australia's most successful veterans and thought leaders in the elite performance and property space. Join myself, Tamara, Dan and Dane as we uncover the untold truths of what it really takes to successfully transition from the ADF, how to build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio, how to start a business as a veteran entrepreneur, and how to communicate more effectively with your partner, whilst optimising the personal performance of every aspect of your life. As a veteran that served personally over 24 years in the military, I'm Robbie Turner. I'm the CEO and founder of Axon Property Group. Welcome to Axons Unleashed. G'day everyone, it's Robbie here from Axon Property Group, and we've got Dan, we've got Dane, and we've got Tamara with us. Welcome to version 6 of Axon Unleashed. Morning everybody.
Good morning.
Mate, you can tell you're excited today because the volume just went up like 10 levels.
Dan and I just went, whoa.
I'm excited to have the great man himself come and join us, Dane Roche. How are you, buddy?
Good. I'm looking forward to today.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Made the starting lineup.
Mate, he's been pulled off the bench. We needed a couple of reinforcements, and here we are.
So welcome to episode 6. So we'll basically be doing a full chronological events, version of events as far as how Axon started, how we got to this point. So we finished off version 5 with the growing pains that we all needed to go through.
And Hawaii. And
we're like, that's when we realised that for us to start to move towards really making a difference and really being able to help a large amount of people in one calendar year, it couldn't just be the small nucleus of 5 or 6 people that we had working in the business that we needed to grow. So enter stage left.
Well, we basically decided, and I put some ads up on Seek over the Christmas period and started to kind of advertise for our next property specialist. And I remember we did have a couple of really strong applicants at the time, and we kind of went down a few avenues down there, and there was one particular guy that strong contender, and we had a couple of chats, and ninth hour, what do you call it? 11th hour?
Yeah. He basically contacted us. He goes, look, it's awesome. Sounds really great. And this guy had a strong in-core background, senior NCO warrant officer, I can't remember. But you know what? He just said, look, we're located in Adelaide right now. The family doesn't want to move to the Gold Coast so soon. Please keep me in mind for future options. We're like, fuck. Thought this guy...
He was an excellent fit. He seemed like an excellent fit on paper.
Back to the drawing board.
A couple of times, so... It was what it was. It's not the right time for you, so therefore it's not an actual right fit for the.
And I reckon maybe fast forward 72 hours because we were on Christmas break. You and I were down visiting your family in Terrigal. This is Christmas 2019.
They would hate that you call it Terrigal.
Down around that area.
Blue Bay.
No one knows where fucking Blue Bay. I didn't know where Blue Bay was, but I know where that is.
Central Coast, New South Wales.
Yes.
Anyway,
we were down there, and I was a little bit deflated actually because I was speaking to you, Dan. I'm like, it's going to be awesome. You've been asking for an in-core person for like a couple of years now. Your wife did many years in the in-core. So I'm like, right, sweet. We've got to have that covered. Then when he said he came through, I'm like, back to the drawing board. Well, so 72 hours later, ding,
bing.
Got another little thing come through, and we got another application.
Yeah, we got our application from the Mr. Dane Roche. And I guess before we continue on our side, I think it's probably best if we kind of flip over to your side, Dane, and we kind of, share with us about why you were looking, what the sort of situation was about looking at the ad, and what kind of attracted you to working for Axon.
And maybe also, can you just let us know, who are you, man? When did you join the military? Just give everyone.
Well, I guess that comes into how you fit the job ad.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I'll give my background first, and then talk about how I sort of got to applying for Axon. So the first sort of thing when I first finished school, I was a bit of a scallywag. So I went and worked with my father at his business, right? So I started off, and there I was just sort of doing elementary stuff at the start. They had a financial planning arm there. So he ran an accountancy firm. So a lot of them were getting sort of financial advisors on the sides. So you have your accountants dealing with returns and tax and so on and so forth. And then you'd have your financial planning who are looking all your forward projections out of that. So I started working there. Then I had to obviously go get some qualifications. I really enjoyed stocks and finance and stuff like that. So I started working there, and I actually really enjoyed it, but I was always sort of my dad's son at work. You know what I mean? So because he had grown this business from the ground up and was quite successful. So he had the largest regional accountancy firm in Queensland.
Nice.
Awesome.
So he had about 5 different offices, and he's a very intelligent man. But I kind of wanted to break free of that. But so when I worked for him, it was a fee-for-service model. So you come in, so if you wanted to turn around and downgrade something or say something wasn't right for someone, you could do that. I then sort of wanted to fly the coop a bit and go and sort of spread my wings somewhere else. But I didn't really find the best platform when I did that. So I worked for another firm at the time. They got bought by Crowe Horwath in the end, so they were called LAK Walkers, and they were actually very much more incentivised around commissions and so on and so forth. And I'll talk about it a bit later on, I think, but I've got a few sort of incidents there where I sort of like in the end sort of clashed a lot with the partners of the business with sort of my views on things compared to theirs. Yeah. So then we sort of went for our separate ways. So I did that, and because at the time I had an advanced diploma, so I had my RG 146, which is your financial planning license that you have to keep and maintain, and you have a certain amount of hours you got to do to keep that each year and so on and so forth. But when I sort of got out of that, I went and travelled for about 18 months. So I just went around through Asia and everything like that, which was fucking epic.
Got to do it.
Yeah, it was great. Like
Did a surfing trip? You're a mad surfer, ain't you?
Yeah. So I started off, it was going to be a 3-week trip. So I flew over to Bali for 3 weeks, and then I came home like, a bit over a year later. So when
3 weeks turned into a year.
Yeah, so I travelled all through India. I went through Bangladesh, like Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, like because as we were travelling around, and I just seemed to have a lot of flow of mates at the time that were just kind of dropping in and out of locations. And like a mate would go like, I'm going to Japan. What are you up to? I'm like,
how old were you at this stage?
So I was about 20. I was about 23, I think, around about
So
then.
pre-military, hadn't joined yet.
Hadn't joined.
Fuck, you would have like really spread your wings properly. Like, because when you're travelling on your own, you spend a fair bit of time by yourself.
Yeah.
You meet people at the bar, but I guess you would have already started to show some levels of resilience and resourcefulness to just make a 2-week trip turn into a whole year. Like, that's pretty epic, mate.
I love traveling, and I so think that people, especially when they're young, kind of get that sort of life experience out of your way, because you grow so much as a person. You absolutely learn lifelong lessons while you're traveling.
Yeah. So and it was an itch I had to scratch, I think. And I learned a lot about myself when I did that. And it was good to pull myself out of like a higher level tempo situation, which was my job, and then sort of be able to go like, oh man, I fucking like it here. I might just stay for a week. You know what I mean? Like I just had that stuff where I wasn't sort of jumping to someone else's skipping rope. From there, when I sort of got back, I decided like I wanted to transition my advanced diploma into a degree. So I went and did a business management degree. I lived over in the States as well. I did a student exchange. So I had if you had over a certain GPA, you could go and you could apply for a grant through Griffith University. So I just went to the university up here at Parkland, like just up on the Gold Coast. Yeah. So I did that. Went over, went to the university.
So you could keep surfing.
Yeah. Fucking epic.
And it all comes back to where can I surf?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good work-life balance, being able to have that involved. So that's good.
Oh, it was crazy. So I did that. Went over so I was at the University of Miami. So I lived on campus and I met epic people over
Miami.
there. Yeah, it was great. And I got a ton of stories from that experience as
I was
well.
going to say, you're like me.
bet.
You're a fucking true Aussie ochre bloke. And like they would have loved you over there.
Oh, and it's full of like Spanish women and Cuban, you know what I mean? And I was just,
Look
I remember
out.
the first guy I met.
This is MA, but we're not going down that route.
I remember the first guy I met was, his name was Dane, and he actually reads the news over there for Key West now. And we became like that. So Dana and Dane, right? And his mum was German. So I think I really sort of, like I went to theirs for 4th of July and all that sort of stuff. They really took me in because he was, half, like when you get really American people, all they care about is fucking America, right? And they just go like, oh, we're the best and we're the best. Yeah, like they don't have passports or anything like that. But because I hung out with him a lot, she had immigrated over, so she knew the world was a bigger place. So I remember the first party I went to with him, so I get down, it's all these dudes, and I'm like, fucking hell, man. I'm like, it's like a bit of a sausage sizzle. and then he goes, just wait for it, dude. Just wait. I'm like, all right, man. So they're having a few beers, and then about an hour later, it was just wall to wall with Cuban women, and I was like, man, America's a pretty awesome place. So so I was over there, got back, worked for a little bit doing some consulting stuff. When I got back, finished my degree, did that, and my brother-in-law was actually in the RAF. So I've got 3 sisters. My oldest one, he's an armament tech. So he's a flight sergeant. He's out now. I think he got to Warren and got out. But he was used to send me pictures of him drinking a beer, and it'd be like on fucking Monday at 9 a.m. And I used to think, oh, government workers, mate. Government. you know, and I thought maybe he's onto something, you know, because he didn't feel anything when he went through the GFC, you know, where everyone else was going like.
You were working in the financial industry during the GFC.
And that was really hectic.
So
really hectic.
what years we're talking about now? Just sort of position everyone from a
So
chronological
I'm coming into
perspective.
so I joined in 2012, so I'm probably like 28 at the time.
Righto.
So I'm joining at 28. So I joined, or 27, sorry. I went and had a youth session down here at the Gold Coast, went through that, and I didn't know the difference between officers and airmen or anything like that. It wasn't really told to me in DFR. Once I got in, I realised there's quite a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
So I joined the RAF and I loved it, dude. Like it was a great experience. It was like a bit of a thing. I guess I always liked planes and stuff when I was a kid, and I always thought like the time felt right for me to go and do that.
Let me just explore something quickly, because having done a year down at Kapuka as a recruit instructor and then 3 years at Duntroon where I met Dan as a leadership instructor there, as an instructor I loved having a like mature age recruit. Yeah, and I bet like just give our listeners and watchers a bit of an insight to what was it like going through recruit training.
No,
but you're surrounded by 17, 18, 19 year olds. I was 17 years, 1 month and 23 days when I fucking joined, so I still remember then.
Is that just an approximate, mate? Or?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm not sure how many hours it was, but yeah, it would have been a fascinating and an unusual experience to be surrounded by young men and women going through basic training, but you're like 10 years older than them.
Not only that, you've got that life experience that a lot of them wouldn't have from these traveling experiences, from your financial experience, your previous work experience. Like some of those people have never had a job before.
Yeah. So when I went, and I had really good advice when I went. I remember because my brother-in-law called me, so Baz calls me up and goes, when you get there, mate, don't be first. Don't be last. Never answer a question. Don't let them know your name. So I was just like, I was always in the middle.
It's not fucking resistance to interrogation.
Yeah. I was just always in the middle of the gaggle. But after a while, then after 2 weeks, I was like, nah, mate, your course orderly. So then I was front and centre wearing it for everyone else who was fucking up. Yeah, so it was a big shock to me, I guess, because I was quite older going in. I was probably older than some of the MSIs that were smashing me. But I thought
what's that?
Military skills instructor.
Okay.
So the instructors, same sort of thing. So
except in the RAF.
Yeah, I tried a lot of things, and I would get the group in trouble. So I remember like these quick changes. I used to think to myself like, man, I'm going to think something around this. So I get back from PT, and they're like, quick change. And I give this, 30 seconds. No one's going to get changed in that. So I just throw my cams over the top. You're standing at the front. Got this MSI walking down the hall, and he stops and comes back because you wear a blue shirt, a really light blue shirt. It's underneath your green because you wear greens back then. The blues hadn't come in yet. Right. And he walks past and he pulls my shirt down, sees the blue, and he goes, so it's surprise. ACR Roach just tried out, smart us again. Well, everyone can, So I was always getting smashed, but I was trying to think of a smarter way to do things. That's what I took it as,
We're gonna. I'm loving hearing. For the record, I'm hearing this story for the first time. Right, this is gold. So we're going to come back to this shortly about when you started with us. Yeah. So please continue on.
Yeah. So I had that. So I joined as an avionics tech at the start. I'd only changed the batteries in my remote for my TV, so I knew absolutely fuck all about electronics. But I learnt a lot. I studied a lot when I went through SCT. But as I sort of got into it, I was realising, man, I'm degree qualified. My academic aptitude is really more geared towards being an officer. So I applied. You have to do 3 PARs, so you have to wait 3 years, and then I commissioned from there. So I went through. So when I did that, when I first started, I was married. So I went through a divorce as well. I was in the RAF, which is not, there's plenty of guys in the RAF that go through that sort of stuff.
In the army, it's sub 5 for warrant officer.
Yeah, correct. You beat me to the punch. Yeah, I love it.
So at the time, so my ex and my daughter Piper, so they moved down the Gold Coast. So they're actually down at Pottsville, so not that far from here. So when that sort of happened, I was really fortunate that I stayed at Ambly a long time. So especially when I started Axon, the boys talk about all their postings. I always used to shut up because I'm like, it's terrible. But deep down, I just spent 8.5 years at Ambly, then that was it. So I had a conversation with the streamer just about getting a back-to-back, and he said, let me have a look. And he looked down through, and obviously I'm just like Ambly course, Ambly course, you know what I mean?
I get a sense just quickly that you're about to transition into how you found the ad for Axon. Right, perfect.
100%. So that was sort of the writing on the wall was coming along, and he said, so I called him up and said, what about going across into 35, one of the flying squadrons? So I was in a training prep squadron at the time, so raised, train, sustain sort of stuff. So where we would get people to go across over to MinHad. So they do 6 month rotations in the RAF, and they just man the base there. I would give all the briefs before they go. So all your DOHAS and your HPAS, all the stuff, anything that is about someone's hip pocket, they will fucking get a book out and they will start writing notes. You talk about anything else, they all just look around and when they want to go on break. So I did that, and then I tried to hit them up to see if I'd go across to a flying squadron, and they said, you've been on base a while. And I knew, even though he didn't say it to me then, I knew my time was
coming.
Yeah, so it's 2021 now. At the end of this year, I would have been posted, and because I would have been posted, like, I didn't want to be the father who was far away. So that is one where I started going, like, oh shit, all right, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I can go get my financial planning license, and I have to go back and get re-registered and all that sort of stuff. And I was swaying around a bit of what I wanted to do at the time. And then I was laying on the couch, and I was sitting there, and I never look at Seek. It's probably the first time I look at Seek in 9 years. So I'm there. I typed in the Gold Coast. I'm like, all right, the first thing is my location. That's the thing where I've got to go, because if I want to be present, I need to be close to it.
2 things: father and surf.
Yeah, I'm an avid surfer as well. That always helps. So I'm literally, I didn't have anything written in the description, just the location. So I'm just there, and it's like, if I want to work at and serve beers, you want to do that? So I was just like,
scrolling slowly.
I was just scrolling through, and I was kind of half sort of like talking to Jess at the same time, watching TV. It was a really just nonchalant. And then it goes past, and it had, I can't fully recall, but I swear it had veteran.
Yeah.
It
said property specialist would suit ADF experience or veteran.
Yeah, so I was going, and I stopped. I was like, what the fuck? And I went back. I started reading this. Yeah. I started
like ambiently scrolling through so much that you're like,
just shit.
And that's shit.
Yeah, and this is shit.
Oh,
no, I'm not a chiropractor. No, I'm not a doctor. Like, I'm just going through. And I saw some finance stuff. I was like, I think I'm going to have to go back and get my skills back up. And I stopped and I was looking at this, and the ad, the way it was written was very different to the other stuff. The other stuff is very like, this is our business, and it's in these fonts, and it comes down, these will be your key responsibilities, and fucking blah, blah, blah. Whereas this one was just like, everything it was saying, it looked a lot more like someone who wrote it cared a lot about who they were going to get. Like, a lot of stuff that they wrote in there was like, this is not your normal job.
Well, that's good, because we do.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But it just didn't have that sterile, that corporate sterile advertisement sort of style.
It was a very different application, like, to be able to actually read it. It basically says, don't apply if you like this. Don't apply if you like trying to filter out people who wouldn't fit with those values that we spoke about.
This is not a 9-to-5 job. This is a lifestyle.
Stuff about investing in property and stuff like that, which I'd already done a lot of. And as it was going through, I was just like, that's me. Yep. And then I was there, and it was pretty late at night at the time, and I ran in and I showed it to Jess. I was like, fuck, check this out. And she's like, looking at it. I'm like, I'm applying for this. And she goes, oh, you're doing it like tomorrow? Because it's like, I'm fucking doing it now. So I ran down and I started getting it all, and shot it off. Because I was like, if anything's worth doing, you do it fucking now. Get it done, right? Or else, like, all I know is there's somebody else, or I get it in, it's too late, or whatever it is. So I was like, I'll get onto it. So I smashed it through, and the next day I get a missed call from
a number
who leaves a quick voicemail, and because I missed it, and you're in that thing where you're like, oh, they're formal, and so I ring back and I miss
Despite
Robbie.
what the ad looked like.
Yeah, I know.
Like, now I need to be formal.
But I left this corny voicemail. It's like, hello, Mr. Turner. It's and just
this haunts you to.
Oh,
this
I know,
day.
because I know him so well now. I was thinking, fucking hell, he's not Mr. Turner. It's, So anyway, so I did that.
I think it's a compliment. I think.
Yeah. So did that. Left him a voicemail. He calls me back, and we finally get to talk. And as soon as I started talking to Robbie, I knew he was like someone I'd never met before. The way he spoke to me on the phone, like he's just the energy he exuded over the phone. I don't even know if that's a word. Exude, Dan? Put for whatever.
Mate, you're the one with the degree, apparently.
Apparently. It's a long time ago now. It's getting a bit rusty. So the way he spoke to me, and he said, look, I'll be brutally honest with you, mate. There were 9 applications, and I'm not ringing 9 people. And I was like, all right, cool. So he goes, I'm going to have this other guy call you Dan. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I got off, but it was a good conversation where Robbie spoke to me about like how I felt about when I looked down the ad, talked about my experiences and so on and so forth. So, yeah, and that was pretty much my introduction at the start. I was just like, fuck, this is great. And I think because it come from left field to me, it was a very get to know stuff really, really fast about it. So
And from my perspective, so I think I jumped on a second call after
in the
you'd
car
spoken
together.
to Dan, and then Robbie and I called you back and had another chat, and when can we meet up and that kind of thing. And from my perspective, the recruitment for you kind of went on a little longer than it probably should have, and it kind of makes me laugh now because there was a few back and forth. Let's meet up here. Let's have this Zoom call. Come in and watch a Facebook Live. There was so many touch points with you. And I remember saying to Robbie, so when's he starting? Have you offered him this job? And you had kind of said, oh, he's waiting for his notice from Defence. He's waiting for Defence to kind of get back to him on a few things. And I remember there was just this weird holding pattern, and I remember you telling me your side there, Dane.
Yeah. So we had a lot of touch points, and I realise now, looking back, why Robbie was doing it. It's just he really wants to get to know you before he lets you through the gate, right? Because it's his business and your business as well, right?
As we sort of spoke about at the end of the last session, is that the people that we had recruited so far, they were all known entities. Like the ice was broken. I knew who they were as well, already, I should say. So, we needed to do this all slow as smooth as fast. I mean, Dan, I'll put it across to you because you guys were just supposed to have a quick little 5-minute chat. How did that? It's like, you're my right-hand man. Like nothing happens in the business without concurrence with you and Tamara. So I mean, mate, I get good vibes from this dude, but ultimately you need to, be the same way.
Yeah. I'm horrendous for doing this to Anne, so it should be no surprise where I'll say, I'm just going to go and make a 5-minute call and then I'll be back out to look
guilty.
after the kids. And I think I disappeared in my office and I sort of put the phone on and put the charger in and got ready to have a chat with Dane. I probably had 3 or 4 questions that I actually wanted to ask him, like, what's your biggest failure in property, all that sort of stuff, and sort of really start to get to know him a bit better. I think probably like 45 minutes later, I ended up walking out of there.
Well, this is also why we've had to extend the discovery calls for you guys, because it used to be a quick 10-minute call and then a quick 20-minute call.
I'm lucky to be done by 30.
Even the 20s are hard to get. Yeah, we got
But
20
it's good because we're filtering out people that are not a fit. I'd rather people say no or they say no sooner rather than later, as opposed to wasting 2 hours and then the rest of it. So
Do you remember much about that first call, Dane?
Man, I remember the first thing you said to me is like, "Oh, hey mate, just wanted to call you for a quick 5-minute chat," and we went for 45 minutes, and we spoke about heaps of things, because I asked you a lot of questions too. I think so. You had, like you said, you had a standard few questions through there, and I was asking because I was trying to learn about you guys as well.
Well, you were kind of trying to work out what we actually did.
Yeah,
right?
at the start.
Because you're like, okay, I've read this job application that says, we do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
But you're like, but how does this all work?
Yeah, so we had a lot of sort of touch points then, and then Robbie sort of messaged me and said, mate, we're doing a live event. Make sure you get on there and watch it. He said, you'll gain a heap of clarity about us, right? And I didn't have Facebook at the time because I deactivated, and I was like, fuck, I've got to get Facebook to watch this thing. So I went and got all that, and I sort of, when I watched it, I learned a lot from that. I remember Robbie bringing people in. He sort of dropped the F-bomb a few times. I was like, man, this guy's just a normal dude. This is great, So I really got that. But with the dance at the start where we were talking a lot, Jess started going to me like, what's going on? Like, is this a job? Or are you just, who are you hanging out with?
Are you sneaking around?
Yeah.
in the friend zone.
Yeah. And that's why I started going like, maybe he just wants to be my mate.
I'm just going to hang out with this guy. I don't actually have a job.
I think that's
For the
gone.
record, I've got fucking so many mates that I don't talk to every now and then. I do not need any more friends, I assure you.
So
That hurts that one.
What was the actual process? So the first point of call, you submitted your resume and your application to Tammy. Then you got a phone call from Robbie.
Yep.
Then we had a call.
Then we had a chat. Then I had another.
Then we had another call.
Yep. Then I had another call with them, and then I had
And then we were going to do that face-to-face meetup.
Yeah, and so we're going to have a face-to-face at a cafe, but you guys couldn't get up to Brisbane.
Yeah, the road was flooded.
The road, yeah. So came in, you guys. So we canned that. So that one didn't happen. And then I think I might have had another phone call with RT, and then a couple of text messages going across, and he said, make sure you watch the live. So I got on and watched that. Then he was hitting me up after that. So it was quite a long, and we were touching base regularly. And
then the next one I remember
was the Zoom.
We did the Zoom,
Yeah.
and then after the Zoom, then you were invited to come down to the office and actually meet us face to face, which we were trying to do.
Yeah. And
What was your first impressions when you popped into our awesome office that we spoke about in the last episode? But what was your first impressions when you turned up?
Well, I got in and there wasn't too many people in front of me. I was like, and someone goes like, I can't remember who it was. Might have been, no, I think it was one of been tomorrow. The boys are filming. I'll just bring you in. And I got in and you two were talking and I remember thinking, man, Robbie looks a lot shorter than when I see him on all the recordings.
Was Dan wearing shoes?
No.
No.
And the boys had shorts on.
He never records in shoes for some reason. Well, there was a time I had to encourage him to wear shoes at all in the office.
Well, we were working in a home office
but
environment.
I still haven't broken the recording in shoes.
But it's better
Recording,
because
you still get your leave pass there with the
Tammy,
shoes.
all I'm doing is making your husband feel better because if I wore shoes, then everyone would know that he's a little bit shorter than me.
Oh, that's
my
what it
excuse is that we can feel the carpet, we can feel the rug, and we can feel the tape on the floor, so we know where to stand.
Yeah, there's no end of reasons why we have to have no shoes
There's
on.
always a reason.
So they had, so I got in. That was my first thing, and I sort of sat back and I watched it and met the other boys, so the other property specialists. Got around and said g'day to me, and then we went into an office. I think the one where I sit now actually, and we had a discussion in there, and that's where like it was more sort of the metal hitting the meat from that perspective, where Robbie talked about like all the transitioning and all that sort of stuff, and where if you got to do your stuff, get that sorted, and we'll receive you when you're ready.
I remember one of the really great conversations we had, like all the fluff had been gone. You're a good dude. Let's now talk turkey. How's this actually going to work?
Yeah.
And what were the main things that you and I were discussing in the name of you being able to successfully transition and not just get out of the military and have it fail, quite frankly?
Well, I had a lot of, obviously I didn't have the leave, so because I hadn't ticked over my 10 years, so I actually went down the leave without pay path. So I had 6 months without. So I kind of kept my foot in that thing just because I still was very guarded, I guess, going into that. I had a lot of conversations like, what qualifications do people have there? You know, like what, you know, like are you guys brokers? Or, you know, so I had a lot of that sort of stuff. I was asking, he goes, we're covered from that, you get this. So he always had something which I always felt a lot more confident about. And one thing I spoke about too was ethics. And it was a big one with me where I spoke to you guys about that. So
That's huge. And that comes down to, you know, the values that we spoke about, but being ethical and not, you know, pushing a client down a property down someone's throat, especially if it's not the right fit for someone. I know that was hugely important to you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when I spoke to Robbie and I think it was Dan as well, because you guys said, and I might have touched on it on the Zoom call, I think at the back end of that, you were like, oh, what questions of us do you have? And I said, well, I just don't want to be in a position where we're doing something unethical. Like if that's something, I don't want to be a part of that.
Based on your previous experiences in the industry.
Yeah. So when I was a financial advisor, like I said, I had a really good sort of wrap under Dad with the way it was all tailored, and it was very much you're doing it for the client. In the Corporations Act, it also states that a financial advisor must do their utmost in the best interest of the client. You know? So, but then when I went across to, because it was very much based, I don't know if I've told you about how they actually sort of did it, which ended up being quite frictionless with me. So where's a good pool of money? A lot of people have it, is in their super, right? People don't sit there and stare at their super transaction account all the time. People will look at their bank account. You know, oh, what's this? What toll? I got a toll charge. I don't remember going to that toll. All that. They look over it like a hawk, but no one ever really looks at that. So a lot of stuff that was sort of burning through that I didn't really like is that one thing that is a recurring payment is insurance, right? Insurance comes out, has a premium, it comes over and over and over. A lot of people can get their insurance through. There's certain standards, so your TPD and your death benefits are usually tied to your superannuation, but then you can get income and other insurances as well. If you purchase them within your superannuation, they are not a tax deduction, right? So they carry the 15 cents tax, right? But if you pay for it out of your own salary, it's a tax deduction. It's a write-off, right? So you're going to get the tax back. So for certain people, depending where they are on their pay scale, I think it's in the better interest for some people to be paying for it out of their income, because they're technically going to get their 45 cents to the dollar back, right?
As you'd expect, everyone's different.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we just don't wave a magic wand over every client and go, all right, you just go apply this cookie cutter solution to your circumstances.
No,
it's got to be tailored.
A plan around their goals, their future life, their family, their goals, all of that. Yeah.
So a big, so what they would do is these guys would push people, like, so they go, oh, you pay for it out of your super so you don't have to worry about it. And like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, cool, that makes sense. So once they do that, they also have a, it's called a clawback or a trail commission. They have that link to that, that insurance benefit that's going through there. So these guys are getting cash for a service they provided 4 or 5 years ago. And that's a recurring payment. And I didn't like that because I'm like, well, in the end, it's not the best for the client. Like one of the greatest things you can learn is tax minimization. You want to learn about getting more money, work out the tax system, right? So I was like, well, for these clients, it's better that they'd be paying it out of that. But they're like, oh, no, we want to keep it in there. And the reason why was not for the client, it's for them because they want to keep getting those recurring benefits. Another thing, so that was sort of going on and I was like, you know, I can get a good vibe from that. And the other thing was when we started going through the GFC, shares went to shit. There was a company called ABC Learning. So ABC Learning was a childcare centre, one of the fastest growing companies that had ever seen, and people were loving it. It's fucking fantastic, right?
Everyone listening to this right now should be nodding their head going, I've seen ABC Learning.
Yeah. They became Good Start, ended up buying the shell company. Anyway, so they were massive in the US. They originated in Australia. They went to the UK, US and New Zealand. They held a quarter of all childcare centres in those regions, right? What they were doing though, in their financial, in their finances, they would talk about intangible assets. So when you're going down through like an accounting structure, and reporting is all different depending, right? But like Axon has a quantitative value, just Axon itself, the brand, right? So they talk about goodwill and so on and so forth, but they were inflating these things. They were buying things so fast, it was almost convoluting the finances. So it looked like they were going really well, but they actually didn't have the cash flow to say, actually affording the stuff they were doing. They were growing too fast than they could afford.
It's all in a line of credit or something.
Yeah. So they were just, you know, and they were fixing this. But a lot of it, because it was the largest public listed company in childcare centres, a lot of the money was coming from investors because they're like, oh, it's fucking great. I want to put my money in there. So they're like, yeah, sweet. Taking the investors' money and then weren't managing it correctly. Anyway, it started to go a bit haywire and I sort of pushed against. So we have like a lead financial planner, I guess, which is like your manager or, you know, sort of like how Dan is with the coaches sort of thing. Then you'd have guys underneath and so you'd have like stocks, insurance, property, whatever it is. So you kind of specialise. Because
all the different asset classes that you can...
Yeah, 100%. So when that started happening, I was like, man, I'm not getting a good vibe from this. I think we should pull everyone's money out who are in it, while it's still worth something. He's like, no. You know, and I was just like, mate, the writing's on the wall, pull it out. And then he didn't, and it went bust. So if you had ABC Learning, you lost everything.
Wow.
And I think that was when I sort of said, you know, I need a break. So I ejected out of that at that point because I was like, it was there and we could have saved them and we chose not to.
And I guess what you're saying there is, you know, you chose to speak up on something that you believed in and something that was the best interest for the clients, and you didn't feel like you were heard.
Yeah. So that was it.
How long after joining Axon, I'm really fascinated by this story, by the way. How long after joining Axon did you realise that wasn't the case here?
Yeah, so once I sort of hit up Robbie about that, and I didn't say to him like, oh, this is my experience in the past. I said, I just want to be in an ethical operating business. Again,
I'm hearing this for the first time. It's great.
Yeah, so, and there's been a few things. So I remember one where someone had quite a lot of funds post their investment. And even though, like, you know, we have a mortgage broker who works really close to us and there's no commercial relationship or anything like that, but mortgage brokers will get paid based off the balance that sits in the offset account, right? Off the mortgage. Yeah. So the best advice for the client would be that, you know, your funds would go in there, right? Which is not the best for the mortgage brokers because they'll get more money. And I remember Robbie just saying, you know, we will always do what's the best for the client. So even though it's not the best for them, it's in the best interest of the client. And then there was a few, I guess, people progressing down the road to acquiring a property where they had erroneous spending. That was another one where the boys turned and pulled it and said, no, mate, like you'll say your money is not in check. And another one, Robbie said, no one is above what we're about. So we're not going to sacrifice our own values for the sake of making a few bucks.
Absolutely.
And I've seen him do that, and all three of you actually, I've seen you guys do that repeatedly throughout my time there. And that's why I fucking love working there, because I feel like the soul of it behind it is for good. And I was saying to Dan the other day, so we spoke on Sunday, and I was like, mate, I believe
That's what we do on weekends.
On weekends.
We chat to
You
each
talk
other
work.
on Valentine's Day.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Dane and I are
Hey
just having a
Valentine, what are you up to?
It used to be you and I. Now it's you and me.
Mate, I think I might have got that message from you. Hey, Valentine.
And I was just talking to him about. I remember we were talking about that. It was just saying that I believe defence members have a certain competitive advantage over every other person out there because they do have subsidised rent. They're very geared towards one asset class. Like they're not going and getting HPAS to go into the ASX and purchase fucking Commonwealth Bank stocks. So when they have that, I think when you know it's the best for the client, it doesn't feel like, for me, like I get a bit perplexed actually sometimes when people don't take up our services because I think, well, what are you going to fucking do, mate? Like I'd love to know what you're doing. Like let me know so I can do it too if it's going to get us to the.
I love that part of the conversation. It's normally when family and friends get involved. They're like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that of you." And I know as you've sort of had a couple of months of coaching under your belt now, and there's been a couple of curly ones come your way.
Yep.
Where family and friends think they know better. I just sort of sit back and go, you know what? I'm cool. If you don't want to do this and you want to take the advice of your family and friends, no dramas. But you've come to us and said, here's your end state, here's your goals.
Yep.
What's the plan, champion? If you don't want to create wealth in your life using the property asset class and you're not a shares guy and you don't know what to do, but you want to take the advice of your family and friends, how the fuck are you going to get from point A to point B?
And we've kind of
And just
touched
sit
on
back
it
and
before.
just shut up and just, okay. No dramas, champ. Off you go. You go fucking do that then.
We've
Give
kind
them
of
the old
touched
red
on
hunt.
it before as like the experiences of our parents and the more senior generations. We don't have the same property experiences that they do. They bought, my dad bought his first property for $120,000 and then a few years later sold it for, $350,000 and then bought somewhere else for $300,000 and then sold that for another $700,000 or something, because this is all in Sydney, which has absolutely boomed. And now, there's just not that kind of experience for this generation. You don't sit there and pay off your own home and expect to make that kind of money.
Yeah, my parents would shit themselves if they probably wouldn't listen to a podcast. My mum wouldn't even know what a podcast is. Love you, mum. But they would shit themselves if they knew I was in a couple of $1 million of good debt. There's debt and there's just debt. There's just no difference.
Just a different mindset.
Yeah.
That's
But-
Yeah.
The axons firing in the brain.
Yeah.
But saying that, that's the difference between listening to your parents or listening to people that are doing it every single day. Just because their parents made a whole lot of money in the property market by buying their own home and paying it off, you can't listen to them if they haven't got their own sort of portfolio, their own investments. They haven't done things in a measured way rather than just relying on the things that happened.
Yeah.
They were a bit they were very fortunate to buy when they did. A lot of people, you talk about the baby boomers, you could go down to Palm Beach, dude. You could buy a house on the beach for 130 grand.
I call them accidental millionaires. That's
Accidental
what it is, mate.
millionaires. Yeah, I always say they're asset-rich cash.
But all the money's in the house. That's exactly
that's-
right. It's
that
like a
asset-rich cash
big
flow.
fucking deal. Yeah.
They got this banging old beach shack that they bought for nothing, and they're down at the Centrelink dole line. You know
You
what I
still
mean?
need to be able to borrow against the equity and demonstrate to the banks that,
And that you can
someone's got to
service it.
pay it back one day.
Yeah.
And where does your money come from when you retire or you're no longer working? Where does your money come
Well,
from?
it's not true wealth. So
No.
wealth is having an asset spread effectively, and you can be rich for a day or wealthy for a lifetime. A lot of those people who just they're hitting the ass by a rainbow. Effectively, they've got this thing. But if you said to them go out and build yourself
Go
up,
create it again.
go build yourself a passive income stream, they'd be like, oh fuck, I don't.
A what?
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because as you've just outlined over the last half an hour or so, you've spent many years working in the financial sector.
Yeah.
And as the great Robert Kiyosaki speaks about, what is the definition of an asset? Now, homeowners fucking hate me when I have this conversation with them, because people are like, oh, I bought my own home and it's going up in value. I'm like, yeah, cool, no dramas. But in the context of wealth creation using property, he defines an asset of something of value, got it, that provides an income.
Yeah.
Now, does your own home take money from your bank account every month or put money in your bank account every month?
Take.
The answer is the first one, correct. So, in fact, Mr. Homeowner, who doesn't want to fucking branch out and create that wealth in your life, you don't have a wealth creation plan. You're just stuck in the 30-year mortgage trap.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. We spoke to Jace about, people relying on what they've got in their super, and no one seems to have the right amount of super for what
pe-
we're going to retire on.
People sitting in uni for twice as long as they should, and people taking ages to get their income up, and by the time they get there, that's why people will be working for a lot longer than traditionally. So, and I love, like you saying that, Robbie, and what do they do with that income? You know, that's what I mean. Like, well, you go in, and I always say it's income producing assets. I sometimes talk to our clients now about it. Income producing assets. I'm sitting there over the Zoom calls saying it to them.
It's like on repeat.
Yeah.
It's like he's got it playing in the background.
Income producing assets.
But here's the thing, like they're hearing it for the first time because, ladies and gents, fucking dial in and tell us otherwise. None of us were taught this at school.
Yeah.
I'll just get the radio hotline.
Yeah. I felt like back in the 80s. Yeah. You can be caller number 5 with the big fucking switchboard I don't have in front of me. But it's true. Like if you've never heard of this concept before, don't feel silly. Like it's normal. If you haven't heard of these concepts, then of course you're just going to do what your parents and friends say. So just let's wrap it up just quickly soon.
Let's take that, Dane. Obviously, you've spoken about your strong background that you've had in the finance sector. You've done your military time, and now you've got your final posting to the Axon posting, obviously, and you're on transition mode. Tell us about when you actually turned up day one to start the business. Like how did the beginning of your time at Axon?
So I came in, ripe old timer, 10 o'clock. That was my start time. I remember that. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I got in and...
we had something on that morning, so I didn't want Dane to turn up.
I'm like, what the fuck?
10 I know. Because I was like, oh, when do you want me there? 8 o'clock? And Dan's like, no, just come at 10. I was like, oh, sweet.
Okay.
So anyway, I got in there and it was very much, came in, met a few people at the start, sort of went around, and then I sat down. It was very structured, which I liked at the start. So I got all my logins and everything like that, and then I pretty much just concentrated on doing my course. Mm-hmm. I could sort of, and I know I was talking to Robbie a bit about that at the time, like Robbie was saying, we're exposed to the business, but I sort of spoke to Dan and said, I'm focused on this, and let me get this done, and then I can inject, so I'm not just going from pillar to post, and then my brain's just pulsating.
What was it that you said to him, Dan?
Oh, probably just do as you're told and nothing more until you're told to do that.
Yeah, that's what Robbie.
Like keep your eyes and your ears open. Yeah, close your mouth, and you'll be fine. Like it almost goes back to the recruit training, doesn't it? That's what I was talking about.
And I did. So I just shut up for 3 months.
Don't be last, don't be first. Just be that guy in the middle. And now you've been with us, basically since that, what was it, March 2020?
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
So you've been with us now for almost a year.
There was a little incident day 2, actually, that you were with us day 2.
Was that day 2? I thought that's why you had to come in late on day 1.
No. I was there because I remember you guys standing behind me talking about. So, so my second day, someone was released of their duties, I guess you could put it. But they left at 9:30, and I remember at the time I was thinking, oh, man, because I started at 10 o'clock the day before. Someone's going home at 9:30. I was like,
what do you mean going home? What did they say?
Well, I said it to Robbie, and then Robbie's like, nah, that's a permanent EKO. Because I was like, oh, is it EKO? And he's like,
what did she walk in and say?
Well, she was saying goodbye to everyone. And she was really happy when she walked. So she came in, you guys took her in and counselled her for the release, and then when she came back, she was so bubbly, dude. So I didn't understand at the time. She came out, she was like, "Bye everyone, have a great weekend." And
oh my god,
they're cruising out.
Invitation.
And I was just like, "What the fuck?" And then Robbie came out. I'm like, "Oh, the EKO." He goes,
"You don't want that EKO.
You don't want that EKO, mate." And I was like, "Oh." And then I realised it dawned on me because then I went to the lunchroom and people were like, "Oh, you got sacked," and I was like, "Oh." Fuck. Thank God.
As I said earlier, that is the hardest part of our business, but it does really all come down to our values. And if people are not aligned, then why would we keep someone, not just for us, but we're holding someone back from living their true purpose or living their best life, living the reason that they should be out there doing their thing. We're holding them back because we're trying to push them into our mold.
Yeah.
And she wasn't a fit, and we tried our best to, to motivate her and train her in our way, and she just wasn't a fit. Yep. And it was still early on, and but it was just kind of unfortunate the timing of day 2.
I was going to say, Dane, what were you thinking when you're like, I've just left the military and now I've turned up and I've seen someone sort of exit stage right?
When I saw that, and then I had a little discussion. I can't remember. I think it was James saying it wasn't a right fit.
Yeah, it wasn't a right fit, and she was still in probation.
And the boys had said to me the day before, like we understand, man. You've come in, you obviously got experiences before this, but just on receive, just shut up.
She was a veteran too. She'd been out of the military for a number of years, but she had 10 or so years under her belt. So that's part of the reason why she came in. But I guess we didn't do that on purpose, but what you would have realised, no doubt, is that this shit is real.
Yeah. So with like in the RAF, it's near impossible to get people out. Like you're there doing records of conversation, all this, and the process is worse than actually just dealing with the dickhead. You know, so you end up just putting them in a corner, or you move them into a different section, or whatever you got to do to just get them out of your face. But when I saw that, I was like, man, this is real deal. You know, your output is linked to like the success of the business. So after that, I was very much like, I'm just head down, bum up,
I think
study.
we hardly heard from you. I think you hardly actually said two words.
I would
for
ask
good.
50 questions to Dan so many times after a call.
Well, we heard from him a whole lot less later, because 8 days later, a small little thing happened.
Yeah,
That's small.
a little international incident called COVID.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
a worldwide pandemic kicked
So you're
into
literally
gear.
drinking from the fire hose,
Yep.
and then you're like, holy shit. 8 days later, Tammy, like we
Yeah.
spoke with one of our HR lawyers, and we're like, okay, we need to send everyone home.
It was a national briefing from the Prime Minister. Everyone
Yeah.
stay at home. You
Yep.
are not to go to work.
Yep.
And thankfully, our whole business we'd already been using all of the things for remote
Technology. Yep.
technology, Zoom calls, things like that. But we were really not kind of prepared for the HR side of things. We've been such a close team and working together every day, and then suddenly we've got to train new team members.
Yeah.
Remotely.
And I got to grace the great Dan Irwin's house, which was
Yeah.
great.
Well,
So-
mate, you need obviously in a new role, you need to be trained up along the way. And I remember Simo was actually over in New Zealand at the time, and he was extremely sick. He didn't have the COVID, but he was bedridden over there because he was meant to come back and actually be training Dane full time from that perspective. But he was gone, so I'm like, Dane, just come around my place. We'll have coffee and banana bread.
was
It'll
awesome.
be amazing.
Yeah.
God,
Your
Anne's,
wife is a top-notch cook.
banana bread. Jeez, it
was
is
epic.
well known. This
So,
Anne's banana bread.
Yeah, so Dane turns up and he actually brings his packed lunch. He'd been to the butcher down the road and everything like that. He doesn't
Put it in the
realise.
freezer.
Put it in the freezer. You're not eating that, mate. You're going to be looked after in this house. But we did. We sat down and sort of my home office there, and we sort of went from the ground up, and you got to just sit in there and immerse yourself over there.
And I think it was really, it was really beneficial to me, because I know I was supposed to transition over to be trained by Simo at that point, but seeing the expectation of a coach from watching Dan would be like, this is what my and seeing him from the top down really assisted me, because then I knew like he needs this, and this done. He needs this done.
It's
This
the
is-
reasons why you do things, the bigger picture on how your little piece of the puzzle fits into the whole puzzle.
Yeah. So what can I do to make sure that he can do his job? You know, what admin stuff can I pick up? You know what I mean? So it was good having that time there, and I actually miss going there, because afterwards when I got
Because
home,
of the banana bread?
yeah, and I was saying to Jess, I was like, oh, what's going on with the coffee machine? How about a coffee? You know, is it broken or what's going on?
I used to walk in home sometimes when I sat in tomorrow. I'm like, babe, what's that smell? She's like, what smell? I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
Where's my fucking dinner?
I wasn't that crude.
And then he got a black eye.
That's another story to talk about. His black eye, though, right?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, but as we sort of wrap up this episode now, it wasn't just you that was going through the training. There was Natalie who'd recently started. There's Nigel who'd recently started. So as we're sort of now transitioning into episode 7, it's all about, you know, how do we grow the team? How do we continue to have that professional output and that sort of service, all whilst working remotely?
How did we continue to grow the business while COVID was happening?
Yeah.
You know, that was a time when a lot of businesses failed. They went under. They had to let go of a lot of people, and we were managing to grow. And so, yeah, it's going to be great to just share some of the learnings that we took, and the stuff that we'd done beforehand to kind of set these safety measures, I guess, in place. We were ready.
Yep.
We were ready.
Because as you may have all heard from the end of the previous episode, we more than doubled the amount of people we were able to help during this COVID period. So that's really exciting, and I can't wait to share with you how we made that happen.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing to share with you how everything sort of came from being the Axon you previously knew to the Axon you know and love now, with the addition of Dane and a few other key members in the team.
So as a quick little heads up, Dane's going to be joining us now pretty much all the time. Every now and then we'll have a little guest speaker come in, and one of us might sort of drop in, drop out. But we've now got Dane, Dan, Tammy and myself ready for the rest of Axon Unleashed. Let's do this.
Awesome.
See you later.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's podcast. If you enjoyed listening, make sure you give us a 5-star rating, hit subscribe so you'll be first in line to get it in your inbox every week on a Tuesday. Whilst you're at it, open up your favourite social media app, be that Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube, and connect with Axon Property Group. This is where you'll see us every day sharing the secrets of creating multi-million-dollar property portfolios and performing to the highest levels of your life. You'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to what it really takes to build a life that you love. You'll also discover how to secure your financial future as an ADF member or veteran, and I assure you your future self will love you for it. Thanks again for listening, and